Are you ready now, Gabriel? You stopped moving, yeah? Cool. Gabriel's our new animator. He's just enjoying being on set and is a bit noisy right now. But the question is, how do you remain creative? I wonder if you do that. Questions come in. How do you remain creative? That's a tough one. So it's a great question. Firstly, before I dig into the question, let me apologize for any background noise you may hear. We are on location and upstairs is a shoot that's taking place. You know, we're often given that label of being a creative. So if you're a musician, if you are a filmmaker and photographer like we are as a team at Vivida, or if you're an artist, we are often given that label of being a creative. But the reality of it is at times we feel far from creative. In fact, we feel uninspired. And that feeling is terrifying and it's scary, particularly when you're paid to be creative. So what do you do? One thing to acknowledge straight away is that there are going to be times when you do not feel creative, and it's absolutely fine to feel like that. The moment you acknowledge that, then you're able to take steps to be able to overcome that challenge of being uncreative. In an ideal world, actually, you leave yourself a little bit of breathing space in order not to be creative, and it will come. But if you are under pressure and you have to be creative, or perhaps you have an opportunity to use that camera, to use that lens, to go out and to shoot something, and you scratch your head and you think, well, what do I shoot? Here are some of my tips. So if you're struggling with working out what to shoot, or you have an opportunity to shoot, but you're feeling a bit flat, I recommend that you avoid the blank canvas. Often we dream as creatives of having the blank canvas, i.e. being able to do anything that we want, create any idea, go to any location, shoot on any subject. But this can be something that can absolutely kill creativity because you spend your time scratching your head thinking, what do I shoot? Then you feel upset because you don't know what to shoot, and the cycle just repeats itself over and over again. So make sure you set yourself some constraints. If you were to take your camera out tomorrow, if you were to take your camera out today and I was to say to you, I want you to go out and I would like you to focus on reflections. I promise you, as you take your camera and you walk around the environment that you travel to or the environment that you're in, you will start to notice reflections and you will, quiet please, and you will feel that you start to see things in a totally different way. Yeah? Because you'll start to see reflections on the window. Now before, you would have shot through the window, but now you're trying to get the focus so that you get an image on the window of the subject. And maybe you would see a puddle on the floor because it's been raining. And you'll get down nice and low, and instead of taking that beautiful shot from up above, you'll be nice and low, shooting the flip side. Or I could say to you, I would like you to focus please on shadows. And you go out into the beautiful sunlight, and instead of shooting the subject, you now shoot the subject's shadows. And you'll start to notice different things. Perhaps it's a silhouette, and the silhouette, shooting for a silhouette will mean that creatively you need to shoot from a particular direction. Okay? Perhaps the subject is going to be color, and I want you to try and go out there and shoot black and white. And then I want you to change it to color. All of a sudden, by doing these exercises, you will keep the creativity alive so that when you arrive on a location or on set, you will then start to see things differently and you'll develop yourself as a creative artist. For me, I'm often inspired by music. Are you the same? Perhaps you listen to music, and as you're listening to it in the car or traveling around, you are then thinking in your mind, certain creative images start to come to mind. So I use this. Sometimes I'll go, I'm going to listen to dance music or dubstep, for example. I know, don't judge me, right? I would choose a particular theme of music, even if it's not a type of music that really resonates with me. But then as I listen to that music in the background, I will form different mental imagery in my mind. And if you're thinking about movement, then all of a sudden the movement that you imagine becomes more glitchy and more dynamic. If you're a motion graphics artist listening to that type of music, perhaps the animation becomes more glitchy, or there's all of a sudden more transitions. If you're editing, there's more cut points. If you were to change the music to something that was classical, then all of a sudden it creates a different feel. Perhaps if you're thinking about camera movement, because you're listening to classical music, then you start to think about graceful slides, right? You may start to think about more natural light because you start to think about period dramas. And all of a sudden, your mental thought process changes just by changing the music. So do not always listen to music you like. I'm not a massive fan of country music, but I will sometimes spend a week listening to country music because it's refreshing to hear and listen to something different. Another key thing for me is change where you are. So could you change the location? You know, when you go on holiday, all of a sudden you feel like you've been revitalized and you've been rebooted. The reason for that is because you are in a different location, you're in a different environment, and you are absorbing and witnessing different colors, different aesthetics, different languages, and all of a sudden that creatively helps you to reboot. Now, if you can't travel, just pick up your computer or your laptop, go to a cafe in a different location, change that environment and work from there. If you do sketching of ideas, don't always choose the same sofa and the same couch to formulate your same ideas, because the ideas will often be the same type of ideas. Take that pen and that pencil and sketch in a park, sketch in the middle of a busy city, and you will start to think of different things. I mean, for example, if you took your sketchbook out and you had to think of a creative concept and you went into the middle of a busy city and you sat on a park bench, are you going to start drawing pictures of fields? No, you're very unlikely to do that. You're probably going to pick subject matter that is busier in nature. Perhaps if you try and shoot or come up with creative ideas at a different time of day. If you are at night and you're sketching things at night, you're going to start to maybe think about shooting in a low-key environment, and you're going to start to think about lighting things totally differently. The key thing to remaining creative is to keep changing your own situation, to keep putting yourself in contact even with different people, collaborate, also change the environment that you're in, change the music that you're listening to, so that you can keep yourself creatively inspired and rightfully keep that title that you deserve of being a creative. These are just a couple of my tips, some things that I find personally helpful, and the same for Team Vivida as well. We hope that you find them useful. What I would love is, would you leave your ideas and your tips on remaining creative and keeping inspired in the comments down below. Really appreciate all of those of you who have taken the time to subscribe as well. If you haven't subscribed, if you like what you're listening to, please feel free to join us. And also feel free to give us ideas for things that you would like me and the team to talk about.